Hello, everyone. I'm Rosemary Coates with the Reshoring Institute. And today I'm very honored to have a guest that's going to talk to us about a new development in Eagle Pass, Piedras Negras, Mexico, and the US side, which is very significant. At the Reshoring Institute, we are finding a lot of the clients that we're working with are bringing their manufacturing out of China, but because it has a high labor content, they're interested in going to Mexico. So we have clients that are interested in reshoring, actually moving production back to the US, but also those that are interested in moving their production to Mexico. And this is a big trend. There's a lot of activity along the US Mexican border. And I think we need to continue to talk about it, not only with respect to the development there, but how it's going to affect the transportation industry. So let's get started. Today, my guest is Ruben Garibay, who is the executive chairman of a company called Puerto Verde. Hi, Ruben. How you doing today?
Hi, Rosemary. I am doing well. Thank you for having me, and I appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, well, you have a lot to talk about today, so let's get started. How did you get interested in this particular border crossing as an investment opportunity?
Well, actually, it started as just a farm and ranching operation, and I came to find out very quickly that the city of Piedras Negras had actually identified one of my farms as a potential crossing. And I started really looking into it and got interested in the fact that it actually did make sense. It had some feasibility. So we started working with the local county and with government officials, and they too thought it was a great idea. So that's how it kind of got underway.
Okay, well, I spent the last week in Laredo and was astonished, actually. As much work as we've done in Mexico and helping clients find new manufacturing locations, I had no idea about the volume. I mean, it was just jaw dropping how much freight is moving across the border. And they told us 14,000 trucks per day. And I had to ask two or three times if that was a real number. I couldn't believe it. For sure, it's 14,000 trucks that are crossing that particular port per day. And Laredo's the biggest land port in the U.S. But the amount of growth that's going on in Mexico is going to be suffocating for even that port that's very automated and fast and so forth over the next few years. So Piedras Negras and Eagle Pass is fairly close to Laredo. Is that right?
That's correct. It is actually part of the Laredo sector. So yes, it is very close. TxDOT has actually identified it as the most viable alternative to the congestion that Laredo has. That's one of the reasons why both the governor of Texas, TxDOT commissioner, as well as everybody who's involved in a ports to plane initiative, which is the building construction of Interstate 27, which actually starts in Eagle Pass and Del Rio. So those two particular ports are the ports to planes. That's where it originates. So Mexico is also working on expanding 57. So there's a huge effort on both the Mexican side and the U.S. side to create an alternative artery to getting traffic and our supply chain into the United States.
So instead of wait time coming across the border in places like Laredo, and of course the other ports are also very busy, Brownsville and others, El Paso, instead of waiting 4 or 5 hours idling in their truck to come across the border, they could potentially go to Piedras Negras or Eagle Pass, depending which way they're going, and cross the border faster. Is that right?
Absolutely. Actually, just the infrastructure is not totally there yet. I mean, it's an active border crossing. It's actually ranks number 8 as a active border crossing today, and has been growing year over year at that same rate at 8%. So it is actually very, very viable. And with the new additions to both the interstates that TxDOT is doing and the new port of entry that we're proposing, absolutely, it's going to be a much faster way of crossing and getting to the U.S. because there's actually a shorter distance to most U.S. cities.
Okay, all right. And so, will the new 27 hook into Highway 35, which is the big artery going north out of Laredo?
No, it's
Will it
actually running
connect?
parallel. Yeah, it actually runs
Okay.
parallel. It'll actually end up passing the Permian Basin, heading up towards Lubbock. However, in Eagle Pass, there is one artery, which is US 57, which does connect at the mile marker 122 onto I 35. As you may also know, 1604 right now is undergoing a huge expansion. That's the loop that goes around San Antonio. So that'll also have a way of getting some of this commercial traffic out and over to either Interstate 10 East or Interstate 10 West. Or if you do have to continue on 35, you could, but eventually 27 will be that alternative route.
Okay. So I was at Eagle Pass about 20 years ago for a client that was interested in moving coal across the border, and we stood on the bridge. We had a look at what was going on there. It was pretty small and old and rickety. And the other big problem was all those trucks coming across the border had to go through neighborhoods in Eagle Pass. The potential Puerto Verde crossing is none of that, right? I mean, I understand. Tell us a little bit about it. I understand it's really high tech and very efficient and doesn't go through any neighborhoods. So, really different.
It is actually. It's something that's actually been in the works for over a decade. On the Mexican side, an area was identified that goes around the city of Piedras Negras on the north side. And this area of this road called Libramiento Norte, today it actually exists. It used to be an old coal haul road that literally takes both commercial and will potentially also take out rail traffic outside of the city. Now, what's really nice about this selection is, or the site rather, is that it's actually from the very beginning going to be designed in a way where the city can continue to grow past it without it ever creating an at-grade crossing, which is where trains and automobiles are using the same exact crossing. So it is really huge because from a social responsibility side, it actually also protects the residents, keeps the trains moving. A train that's not idling and moving is a safe train. It doesn't interfere with the actual residential traffic or any of the neighborhoods at all.
Very interesting. So let's take a step back for a minute and talk about the overall situation, so we have an understanding of what it actually looks like. So today's environment, Piedras Negras and Eagle Pass, there's one bridge, right? And
Right.
that bridge is very constrained. I think only maybe one or two lanes going each direction, very slow, very little automation. It's really not much of an important crossing at the moment because of the constraints like that. And with the growth of all these companies that are coming out of China and taking advantage of low cost labor and low cost operations in Mexico, and in Mexico's desire to improve their own manufacturing capability, their own industrial ability, creates this giant traffic jam. So we've got a lot of products moving across the border both ways. We've got a relatively small pinch point crossing in Eagle Pass. And now this planned development, Puerto Verde, is not only the bridge crossing for trucks, but it's also rail crossing and development on both sides of the border. Is that correct, or at least on the Eagle Pass side?
That is correct. It's a complete complex. It's actually we've what we've done is we've worked with the state, we've worked with several stakeholders, and have really been bouncing ideas back and forth on what are the lessons learned. And Laredo is a perfect example. Laredo, I don't think 20, 25 years ago had an idea how much potential they actually had, and it's been phenomenal. I'm really happy for Laredo. I used to live in Laredo. But there are a lot of lessons learned. Just like there's been the great things that Laredo has done, there's also some things that they could have done better if they had any idea. It's not that they didn't want to. It's just that really nobody really planned for this tremendous amount of growth. So today we've got two phenomena going on. We've got the nearshoring and the reshoring, and we have a lack of infrastructure in Mexico. So our project is actually capitalizing on the fact that we're very close to the border. We've got power, which is something that's very short and coming in Mexico right now in development, and we've also got water. We're coupling that up with a very modern design as far as the port is concerned, because we're actually, since we're privately funded, we're actually able to do some things that a municipality probably couldn't do because they got to follow certain criteria since they're getting federal funds. In our particular case, although CVP will be manning and operating all the inspections, we are radically designing the ports as they're known today. So we are actually going to be able to put all the technology ahead of the first primary booth, the first booth where an inspector actually meets a truck driver and the cargo. So they can actually make decisions based on data instead of just guessing or randomly selecting inspections, which, by the way, I think everybody knows that less than 17% of all cargo right now is actually screened. So that's lends itself to a lot of the ability to have contraband in cargo, which we plan to alleviate that by inspecting 100% of all cargo, both in trucks and in rail.
How will that work though? So inspection is great, but it will certainly slow things down unless it's automated in some way. I understand there's a lot of automation involved with the potential bridge crossing also, not just like in Laredo, we saw the trucks being scanned. They took about 15 seconds, I think, to be scanned. So there's advanced information that's provided to customs on both sides of the border about what's coming. And then when the truck nears that scanning point, that information is matched with the truck identification and also the driver facial recognition. And then in 14 seconds, all that information is matched up and the truck is scanned, weighed, and moved on its way. In general, I mean, obviously there's secondary inspections if there's problem or whatever, but by and large, most of the trucks move. And like you said, 80% of them at least move very swiftly across the border. So the more automation that's implemented, I think is the key, because in this way, scanning the cargo so that if there's contraband or if there's advanced information that maybe there's contraband coming in one direction, it can be stopped. More importantly, though, when you look at the big picture, it's simply moving that cargo across the border to continue to support trade that's so important for the development in both Mexico and providing support for U.S. manufacturers as well. So, tell us a little bit more about the technology that's proposed and, what will it look like when a truck is approaching the border?
Right. Well, it's not only the technology, but there's also a change in practice, the way we're going to be doing things. So our technology partner is a company called Decision Sciences. They have a product called Discovery. It's a non-intrusive inspection system that actually expels no radiation. So it's got no ionizing radiation. So it's completely safe to both truckers, the agents, and any type of a cargo, whether it be produce or automotive. So that's very important because today that's one of the areas that leaves a lot to be desired. The gamma ray systems right now require exclusion areas. The agents can only have limited exposure to them. So that in and of itself, that older technology creates the gaps of being able to go 100%. So for one, that's the way we're starting, 100% with this partner. So we're able to inspect 100% of the trucks. You said it's very, very quickly. What actually takes the longest is adjudicating the images. So if you've got shippers that, like an automotive, that can pre-register their cargo, very similar to how we register ourselves at airports using Clear or the TSA pre-check. Well, we can get an image recorded of a shipper's configuration, and the artificial intelligence system is only looking for anomalies. There's no anomalies between the cargo, the truck driver, which is also using facial recognition. Then we're pretty much ready to go. I mean, that driver can actually go through, and the intent is actually to be able to take that and leverage that technology and start operating at a 24/7, especially with commodities that we're able to configure load after load in the exact same way.
Oh, so for example, I understand automotive is the biggest industrial sector moving across the border. So if you already
Mhm.
know the weight and configuration of those crates that are being moved across the border for automotive, it's the same thing that moves every day, for example, then
Mhm.
it should be no brainer. You can scan it and move it very quickly, right?
Very quickly. And that's the idea. The agents really should be focused on the shipments that are irregular, but a regular shipper. Let's throw some of the OEs out there. Uh, these folks are shipping the exact same product over and over while they're running a specific model. So they actually should be able to qualify and should be extended that because all those OEs have spent thousands, if not millions, in security. So this is a way of kind of giving them something in return for their investment and making sure that they actually are moving their products as swiftly as possible to keep their costs down and keep that supply chain moving, which also makes room for those commodities that are irregular, such as produce, to have a little more time, ample time to get inspected and also be moved a lot quicker.
Okay. So what are the other commodities, big commodities that are moving across the border besides automotive? What else is coming?
Well, today it's mainly automotive. I mean, we do have some mining products, but with the new port, the proposal is actually we're going to be able to do heavy haul. We have a specific lane for them. We're actually within the foreign trade zone. We're also going to be able to bring in those double trucks that operate in Mexico, those double 40s within the foreign trade zone, at least, so that way we can also bring in double the cargo with just one truck, also lowering our carbon footprint, doing the responsible thing. But as far as commodities, I mean, the industrial park is actually very could be very inviting potentially to chip manufacturers because we've got plenty of water, plenty of power, plenty of labor. Yeah, we're actually in the market right now for a couple of big OEs and big manufacturers because we actually do have the space. I mean, it is 20,000 acres on between both sides that we can develop.
That's terrific. And particularly water. I understand that water, well, it's obviously key to a lot of manufacturing operations, but it is also going to be a huge issue going forward with all the climate change and potential droughts and that sort of thing. Water is essential to keep manufacturing going. So, with your ability, it's water from the river as well as from a lake, right? So there's quite a bit of water
Yes, I
there.
mean, we do have today, we have about 400,000 liters of annual capability on potable water. But I think what's most important, and I think I may have not have shared this with you earlier, but we actually have 700,000 liters of industrial water, which has been recycled, been treated either by the city of Piedras Negras or the city of Nava, Coahuila, and including the power plant as well. And we're actually in talks with another manufacturer that expels quite a bit also. That could actually push us to a little bit over 1.5 million. Now, this is treated
Wow.
water. I mean, this is water that's actually treated to go back to the Rio Grande. So it's not toxic. It's been cleaned. It's been filtered, but could serve a fantastic industrial purpose and reduce that life and actually not put a strain and a load on the potable water systems in the area as well.
It's fantastic. It just sounds like such an ideal kind of project to facilitate this cross border trade that we see is coming already, and is going to move quite fast. So the pinch points, if we solve the technology issue, we help trucks so they don't get backed up and idling. By the way, when a truck idles, it's doing putting a lot of pollution in the air as well, right? I mean, that's a
Yeah.
big problem. Yeah.
It is. I mean, just idling is about a gallon to a gallon and a half, depending on the manufacturer. But what people don't realize that when you're actually rolling slowly and crawling on a bridge, you're actually burning about 3 gallons an hour because every time you crawl, one position up, you're having to accelerate a little bit just to move a few feet forward. So yeah, you'll actually burn a heck of a lot more. So if you're talking 4 hour wait time on average, that's you're already looking at about anywhere between 12 to 15 gallons. So it's a significant amount to be waiting and burning on
Yeah,
the line.
so using fuel, which is expensive, as well as polluting the air, all these are good reasons to make those trucks move across the border fast and
Absolutely.
reduce that idling time. I'm sure the truckers are going to appreciate that too. They want to move, not necessarily stand in line for hours and hours like they're doing all along the border right now. So improving that is really important. But the other pinch point, so if we resolve the technology, we expand the bridges, we make the infrastructure available. Now we got a problem with customs, right? So understand that there was some rail embargo last week or a couple weeks ago uh, because there weren't enough customs agents available. They had to move them over to the immigration problem, and therefore the cargo couldn't move across the border. And if we don't solve both of those problems, it doesn't matter how many lanes we have open. If we don't have customs agents to process them, that's going to be another problem that needs to be addressed. So that means the U.S. government has to get involved, as well as the Mexican government on their side. It means funding. It means, Congress again, and who knows what's going to happen in Congress. Pretty scary. What's the immigration situation like in Eagle Pass?
Well, I think you've been seeing the news like just about everybody else has. It's real, but it's been happening for a while. It's just really gotten to levels that even surprise the locals because we have seen a significant amount of traffic in the last year. But you asked how would this affect the new port design because we're so leveraged on technology by design. Uh, we calculated we can actually grow to about 14,000 processes like Laredo with the current amount of people that are actually processing about 1,500 loads a day. So, because again, we're leveraging technology significantly, where AI is actually doing a lot of the adjudication. So, although we wouldn't want our agents to be moved out of the area, we could still keep the supply chain both safe and moving pretty quickly. Unlike today, because today's port in Eagle Pass is actually shared with the private, I'm sorry, POVs, which is a person occupied vehicle, and the pedestrian bridge. So that's really been the issue there, that because that whole sector is actually or that bridge is actually being shared, that's the root of the problem. But by moving it outside and just making it strictly commercial, we wouldn't have that issue because there wouldn't be any
Ah,
immigration areas designated for
yeah.
that.
So when we were in Laredo, we saw the various bridges, and some of them are for pedestrian crossing or for automobiles, and then two of them are strictly commercial, so no pedestrians. And the same is true in Otay Mesa. Near San Diego, where it's strictly a commercial crossing as well, which should
Right.
speed up the processing. You don't have to worry about pedestrians in your way or resources. The customs resources are going to be paying attention to the commercial side of things and making sure that flows. So tell me, where are you at in terms of the development? So it's a big idea, sounds fantastic. really going to relieve a lot of issues, not only current issues, but those in the future as we see more growth along the border. So, how far along are you in this development? Is there any construction that's started yet, or what's going on with it? What's the current situation?
Yeah, great question. And thank you for asking. So this is a great opportunity to pitch where we're at today. So we've actually got about 238 acres already being developed. Utilities are actually being installed today. We've got all our permits, both environmental, construction, quite a bit advanced. And that's actually on the Mexican side in Nava Coahuila. I'd be more than glad to share that information, but you can also go online to our website, which is puertoverde.com, and you can see where we're at. So that particular section right now already has 60 megawatts of available power, and the 400,000 liters of potable water and 700 liters of industrial water. So we're off to a great start already. That's on the Mexican side. On the U.S. side, we've already actually started also working in our area that's between the airport and the railway. Our spurs are actually active and already are working already. We've got a couple of commodities we're transloading in that area as well. So we're well underway from zero. We've already started moving and leasing areas as well.
So, when will the Asheville Bridge development start?
Well, we're hoping that with the bills that were introduced both at the Senate and in Congress, that we're going to be able to lean on the White House for our presidential permit as early as January. So they've got, according to the bills, they've got about 60 days to respond to our application with either an approval or a denial. And we're hoping with all the merits that we've got, which are really lined up with this administration, that we actually should be able to get an approval from them and start moving forward on the NEPAs and the other studies. Now, we have already done a significant amount of the studies that are required, such as environmental impact. I'm sorry, I'll take that back. That's the one that's pending, but we already hired the consultants. But we have done the economic impact studies, the feasibility studies, and the traffic studies, which will be needed to do the NEPA, the environmental impact study.
Fantastic. So hopefully, maybe within a year or so, you might start construction on the bridge if all goes well and you get the sign off. Okay, that's terrific. I'm very excited for this opportunity. I think for you, obviously, it's a great business opportunity. But for when I'm looking at it from a reshoring perspective, it's really important that we continue to grow and to provide these kind of high-tech automated results for infrastructure building in order to facilitate this cross-border trade, because I see it growing enormously over the next 5 to 10 years. We have so many clients that are interested in getting out of China and trying to find another location to manufacture. And Mexico is an ideal situation because it's low cost and the proximity to market. And, there's just a lot of reasons why Mexico is very interesting. And, we'd love it if all the manufacturing came back to the U.S., but that's not possible because of the cost structure. And so Mexico is definitely a great alternative economically. Do you expect to get any money from the infrastructure bill? Will there be any money available to build this or to fund customs or some other funding?
Yeah, since we're privately funded, we're not actually dependent on it, nor are we seeking any type of funding from the federal infrastructure bill. The customs group will actually be just pretty much changing addresses. So it's very cost neutral for the government itself as far as personnel. There will be obviously some lease space issues that will arise, but that's 2-3 years from now. And the fact that the federal government has already invested in Interstate 27 as a funded project, there's really no reason why they wouldn't fund the port that actually ports the planes as just part of those investments. But Rosemary, I would like to actually go back a little bit. You mentioned something about how close the proximity to our market is, and reshoring and also manufacturing on the U.S. side. One of the very unique things that we are actually offering as part of our binational industrial park, which is the park that's on both sides, that'll saddle both sides of the Rio Grande once the port is built, is that we will actually have uh, the ability to be very, very close to the market. So if you're looking at similar markets like Juarez market, although they're pretty distant logistically, they've got a disadvantage as far as freight costs. We have a huge advantage. We're less than 100 miles. If you follow, your listeners here in trucking, it's very common for you to do 100, 125 max of deadhead miles to position your trucks. With as many trucks that are coming into the San Antonio sector, the Laredo sector, it's pretty easy to move a truck from those areas to Eagle Pass and literally cross the border, immediately pick up a load and head northbound, which is a lot faster than servicing markets such as Querétaro, the Puebla, San Luis. Those markets have become very imbalanced because most of the supply chain is actually coming in through the ports on the Mexican side and is not bringing in empty or preloaded equipment and positioning them in those markets. So those markets, although the labor might be a little cheap, the overall cost of freight actually does hit their ledgers as well. And the fact that we're so close to the border on the U.S. side, with a market that historically has been about 50% below the poverty levels, it should be very difficult to get $15 an hour hands on the U.S. side to finish up the labor that's needed for a USMCA compliance. So we're actually going to be able to share both within the foreign trade zones on both sides of the border.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I'm so excited about this whole idea and how you've come along and progressed. You've thought through all the issues and the ideas. Now we're just going to wait until it all happens, and we'll have a big celebration when the bridge opens. Thank
Absolutely.
you very much for being our guest today, Ruben. I really appreciate it. Can you give the audience the website for Puerto Verde if anybody's interested in looking into it further?
Absolutely, Rosemary. Again, thank you for having me. The website is Puerto, just like Puerto Vallarta. A lot of people know that name. And Verde, like the color, puertoverde.com. We look forward to having you guys look into it and follow us also on Twitter and Facebook.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.